Hi everyone, this is Portia. Welcome back. This is Tuesday, so it's my Farmers Market Live recipe demo. So if you guys saw, today I was out at the farmer's market. I found all of these lovely, beautiful tomatoes. So today I'm going to be making a tomato and Gruyere cheese tart. Exciting. So we're going to be using, of course, these lovely, beautiful tomatoes, some puff pastry. So I have a sheet of puff pastry here that I started. We're also going to be using some thyme. So I have some thyme that I got from the farmer's market. I have some Gruyere cheese, which I've already grated, some Gruyere cheese. So lovely favorite Gruyere cheese. I have some Dijon mustard and with some garlic mixed in there. And then I have some egg wash, which I'm going to use to help really brown up our puff pastry. You'll see how I'm going to use that. So first thing I did was I took out my sheet of puff pastry and I cut it into four. So into 4 squares, and this is one of those 4 squares that I cut of that part of the puff pastry. And then we're going to do what we call docking. So I'm going to take that puff pastry and I'm going to use my fork and I'm just going to put a bunch of holes in it. Okay, so that's going to help prevent it from the bottom from bubbling up, because basically how do you make puff pastry? So you take your dough, which is going to be some mixture of flour and water, and then to that you're going to incorporate lots of butter. And so what happens is you create layers and layers of dough, and when the heat hits your puff pastry, it's going to puff up. So the steam that gets generated from that butter, when the butter hits the oven, is what's going to create all of those little flakes. So that's how you make puff pastry. So now what I'm going to do is I have some tomatoes here that I've already sliced up, but I'm just going to show you really quickly. What I did was I just took a serrated knife to slice my tomatoes, and I'm actually going to start from here, from this end. I'm just going to cut off that little bit, and then I'm just going to cut as thin as I can with my serrated knife. So get nice slices of tomatoes, nice thin slices. You don't want them to be too thick, because that'll really make your tart probably a little too wet, a little too juicy. So you want to start with some thinner slices of tomato. All right, so after I've docked my puff pastry, I have, again, that Dijon mustard. So actually, I don't know, some of you guys know, I used to teach cooking classes for a long time. One time I did have a woman from France who was in my class, and she was like, Portia, it's not Dijon, it's Dijon. So Dijon mustard, and to that I'm going to add my thyme. So this is my favorite herb. It has a little bit of smokiness to this herb. So all I do is I hold it at the very top, pull straight down to get the leaves off of the stem, and the top ones I just pluck right off. So I'm going to do that a couple more times. We're going to add a few sprigs of thyme to my mustard and the garlic. And this is going to create like a little base that the tomatoes are going to sit on with, and then also the cheese. So we've got that mustard. I have my thyme, fresh thyme leaves going in here. And then we're going to actually put some more on the top too. Okay, so then mix that. So I've got mustard, garlic, thyme. Then I'm going to take this, and then I'm going to put that right on top of that parchment. Hey, Hillary. So I'm going to put that right on top of the parchment. So on top of my puff pastry. So I've got the puff pastry, I've got the mustard, garlic, and thyme. All right. And then we have the cheese, which is Gruyere cheese. So it's kind of a nutty Swiss cheese. It's really delicious. And this is probably my favorite cheese. This and Manchego are my 2 favorites. So some cheese. All right. And then I'm going to take some slices of those beautiful tomatoes that I've already sliced up. I think I'm going to go ahead and combine 2 different tomatoes just for some balance of color. So I'm going to take that one, that little starburst one, and this one, which has like the darker red. And I'm going to place those on top. And now we're going to add some more thyme to the top. So I have the other thyme. So again, just hold it at the top, pull straight down. You're going to get a nice sprinkle of thyme right on top of those tomatoes. Okay, do that a couple times. No pun intended. All right, so thyme on top. And that looks good. And then on top of this, I'm going to put a little bit of olive oil. Oops, a little olive oil right on top of those tomatoes. Okay. And then also I have some sea salt here, some really flaky sea salt. So I'm going to add that to the top of the tomatoes, just a little sprinkle of that, less than a teaspoon. And then in here I have an egg wash. So it's just an egg that's been beaten. And I'm going to go around the edge of that puff pastry. Okay. So all around the edge of the pastry with the egg wash. So that's going to get it nice and brown once it goes into the oven. Okay. So take that. You could use different cheeses too. This is going to now go into my 430 oven for about 10 minutes. And I'll show you what it's going to look like when it comes out. So here's my tart. My tomato Gruyere tart. Looks really good. Give it a nice slice. I'm going to cut into that. You can hear that crunch, which is exactly what you want. So it's just a way to make, you know, puff pastry, using it in a savory way for a savory tart versus a sweet tart. There you go. So here you go. There's that tart. Beautiful. Let's give it a try. So Gruyere cheese, mustard, garlic on the bottom, tomato, thyme throughout. Of course, sitting on that puff pastry flake. So I'm gonna take a bite. So good. That's what you want in a tart. So I don't know if you can hear the crunch, but it was crunchy, delicious. All right, I'm going to post this in a little bit. Thank you guys. Thank you, Hill, for watching. I appreciate it. So yeah, let me know if you try this. I'm going to include the recipe in a future post. Thank you guys.